Okay, here are some simple tips to get started with Excel so you can be pretty proficient at it to use in your Amazon business. This is a fresh spreadsheet. The first thing that we're going to do is we'll make a table to track our purchases. So we'll start off with SKU, then we'll do ASIN, then we'll do description, then we'll do the date that the item was purchased. Then we can put in the quantity. And then we can put in the vendor. We can put in how much we paid. And then we're going to want to know, so we'll start with that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take all this and we're going to highlight it. And we're going to highlight the next row. And we're going to do Insert Table. Okay? And we're going to click My Table Has Headers because we do have a header row here. We click OK. And what this does is it puts it into a table. We're going to see later that has a lot of uses. And then the next thing we're going to do is go to the table name up here. And we're going to name the table Purchases. Okay? So we have our table. It's called Purchases. Let's put our first item in. I have some data here that I already pulled. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And we're going to call it deodorant. This is the ASIN. This is the description. This is the date, the quantity, and the vendor. Now, you'll notice that this is showing up as these little pound boxes. That's because the column is not wide enough. If you make the column wide enough, then it shows it. You'll also notice that this gets cut off. So one really quick way to automatically expand the column to fit is to double-click on this spot and the column will automatically expand. Another way to do it is just to select all your data or to select your entire table, and then you can go to Home over here, and you can go to Format on the right, and you can go Auto Fit Column Width, and then it will automatically fit the column width. Okay? And say for this we've paid $200. Now we want to add another row into our table. So one thing you can do is you can take this little guy down here and you could drag it down. Another thing you could do, which is a lot easier, is you can just go to the bottom right cell and you can hit the Tab key and it automatically adds a new row to your table. Okay? So let's add a new row. Let's actually add a couple of new rows. I'm just going to copy and paste some data here that I have. And here are all our rows and they all get added to the table. Now, let's say for this one we paid 500. And for the next one, we paid 1,000. And for the next one, we paid 2,400. And for this one, we'll say we paid $100. Okay, so or $100. So this is some data here. Okay. Now, so far, because we have it in a table, we can automatically filter and sort the data, which is really nice. So we can click on quantity. We can do smallest to largest. We can do largest to smallest. We can do paid, the same thing, largest to smallest or smallest to largest. Another thing that we can do is we can filter our table. So if I only want to see what's done by star, I go in here, I click on that little arrow up here, and then I unclick Acme, and I go OK, and it will only show me the items that were sold by star. So you can filter, and over here you can click clear filter, you can search for a filter. This, it's not big now, but when you have a lot of products and you have to be able to search in the filter, it makes it really, really easy to be able to work with your data. So that's one way that tables are really, really helpful. Now let's look at another piece here, okay? When we go to date and we look over here on the top over here, Excel automatically knows to calculate this as a date. It knows to understand that this is a date. Quantity, it says, is general, but paid, we want it to know is a dollar amount. And there's another thing I'm going to show you, that anytime you have an expense in Excel, you want to put it in as a minus. So this is minus 2,400. We're going to call this minus 1,000. This is going to be minus 500. Oops. This is going to be minus 200. And this is going to be minus 100. And now we can select this column, and we're going to go up here. I'm going to click the little dollar thingy. So now Excel knows this is a dollar amount, and it just puts the dollar and it puts in parentheses to show you that it's a negative amount. So we're going to use that later to help keep our data nice and tidy. Now, another really cool thing about tables is if you go up here on the top right by Table Tools to Design on the ribbon, and you can click on the total row. And total row means that it'll create a row on the bottom with totals, and then you can click on any category, and you can do quantity, you can do the sum, you can do the average quantity for 30, you can do the sum, and Excel will calculate that on the fly. And now if you go ahead and filter your table, let's say I only want to see things from Acme, it will show me how many I bought from Acme and how much I paid. So that will change based on how you're filtering your data. So this is a really, really quick way to get a quick snapshot of your data. Now let's add on another row to our column. So we're going to click up here. I'm going to do amount per item. Okay? And Excel knows that since it's next to my table, it will be part of the table. I double click here because I want it to spread out. Now, how much is my amount per item? The amount per item is the paid divided by the quantity. So we're going to make a formula, and it's going to be really easy. We're just going to hit equals, because that's how every formula starts. And then we're going to click paid equals paid, and then we're going to type in over quantity, and then we're going to hit enter. And Excel is bright enough to understand that it should take paid over quantity for every column, and it automatically brings the formula down to the rest of the table. And now these are all dollar amounts. So we're going to want to click here and go dollar amounts. And now Excel knows how to put amount per item. And over here we can do the average, for example. And now we know our average cost per item is $2.67. So this is our first formula. And if you look, no matter which cell we're in, over here on the top, it's still showing the same paid per quantity because it fills the formula down and it knows to calculate that row. Now let's talk a little about the syntax. The fact that it's in brackets is showing that this is a column in a table, and the at paid means it's a column in the same table. It's not in a different table. So at paid over at quantity. So that's what we have so far. So this is really just a really helpful way to keep your data nice and neat. Anytime you put in data, you want to put in a table, and then you can start doing all this type of cool stuff. Okay, so now let's start running some analyses on this data. So the first thing we could do is we can go back to insert, and we can insert something called a pivot table. And you click pivot table here, and it says collect table arrange. It already knows, since we were already in purchases, it selected purchases. And where do we want our pivot table to be, on a new worksheet or on the existing? I'm going to click the existing worksheet. I'm going to click over here, J1, because I want to be able to see it all in one shot, and we're going to click OK. And now it puts the pivot table in. Now the second you do that, you get this whole thing that shows up on the right side. And these are the fields we want to add. This is extremely intuitive. For example, I'll pick vendor. It adds vendor to the rows. And then I will click quantity, and then it puts quantity as the values. So now it takes all the Acme data from here. It says what's my quantity? 100 plus 50 is 150, and then over here it shows Acme 150. It pulls star, it pulls 200. You could put then date. We could put date in, and then it will divide it up by date because we're putting it in the rows. We could get rid of vendor here. We could remove this field, and we'll just show how much I ordered by date. We can do paid, and we could add paid as a value. We can do amount per item as a value. It shows the average, and we can click this and tell Excel that this is a dollar amount, and it will understand that, and tell this is a dollar amount, and now we'll know that. So this is using a pivot table to very, very quickly play around with your data, and then we can actually filter it and do the same sorts of stuff. We can have a grand total row. And we can do a whole bunch of stuff with pivot tables that are really, really quickly. So if you want to be able to summarize data really fast, you just throw a pivot table in there. And this is like sitting here and filtering by vendor and then checking. It's as if we had filtered. I want to only see star and then adding up this number. Instead, a pivot table lets you see all of this in one shot. So this is why pivot tables are really, really helpful. Okay, so now I'm going to select this pivot table, and we are going to delete it. And I want to show you another way to be able to calculate data. So let's make a new table, and we'll call this calculations. Okay, calculations. And that will be the name of my table. I'm going to actually select this table. I'm going to do Control X to cut. And I'm going to go here and do Control V and move it down. And I'm going to call this purchases. And then I'm going to take this. I'm going to select all these rows. And I'm going to go over here and do merge and center. So that merges them into one thing and centers purchases in the middle. And then I'm going to go over here into styles and choose this as a heading. So now it shows purchases, and this is nice and fancy. Another styling piece that I want to show you is that you can select all the cells where you put data into, and you can set them as input. And then for these, you can set them as calculated. Here we go, output, output. And that will just let you know, don't type into here because this is a calculated field. Type into here, these are fields where you enter data. Okay, so now let's move to calculations. We're going to make a table called calculations. I'm going to call this vendor, and we're going to do paid. Okay, now calculations is going to be the header, so we're going to merge and center this, and we are going to set it as a heading. And over here we are going to insert a table. And we're going to insert table. My table does have headers, and then I'm going to name my table calculations. Now, whoops, I'm going to name my table calculations. Okay. Here, let's see, calculations, table tools. No, oh, I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, let's just call this calculations 1. Okay, calculations 1. There we go. Okay, that's the name of this table now. Now, we'll enter in our vendors manually. So we'll enter in star as one vendor, and we will enter in Acme as the second vendor. Now, what we want to do is we want to pull the pay data from the pay data here. We want to pull it into here. So really what we want to tell Excel to do is we want to say to Excel, hey, for every row in this table where the vendor is star, I want you to add the paid amount into this column. So we're going to do equals, and this is called sum if. So sum, it adds up if a certain thing is true. So sum if parentheses. So if in this column, vendor, if in the vendor column, so it says purchases is the table and vendor is the column name. If in, this is why, once again, why we name our tables. If in purchases vendor, check to see that the name matches vendor from our table. And then we do comma again. And then we were going to say, then I want you to sum the amount paid, purchases paid. And we're going to put parentheses at the end, and then we're going to hit enter. And magic, Excel now automatically calculates this and says, oh, that's $3,500 and that's $700. And we will tell it again, hey, Excel, I want you to turn this into a dollar amount. So this is a way using sum if that we can create a second table, a lookup table, that pulls the name of the vendor, for example, and figures out the amount paid. Now you can see where this is going to be really helpful because later on when we're going to import Amazon data, so let's do a different, we'll call this P&L for profit and loss, and we're going to do it by SKU, we're going to do cost, and then we're going to do sold for, and then we're going to do profit. Okay, so let's just set this up. We're going to do P&L. We're going to merge and center this so it looks pretty, and then we're going to give it a header. We're going to put heading 1, and then we're going to create this into a table. We're going to do insert table, and my table does have headers. We're going to name the table P&L. P&L. Whoops, can't have a thing, so we'll just name it PL because it won't let me PL. Right? So then we can pick SKU, and we would enter our SKUs manually. We're going to talk later about how we can get the SKUs to get in automatically, but I just copied the SKUs over. And then cost, how am I going to know the cost? Well, the cost, we're going to do the same sum if. So we're going to do equals sum if. So if in this table, if in purchases, we'll type this in manually. If in the table purchases, right, the row SKU, and Excel's nice enough, and then we can close that with the brackets. If in that row, comma, it equals the same as in our table SKU, comma, then what I'd like you to do is pull the amount of paid from purchases. So this is going to show the total amount paid per SKU. And then we're going to go here, obviously, and we are going to tell Excel that this is a dollar amount. Now, that means that if I add in the same SKU, because I made a second purchase here, and this is on 5/15/16. I hit enter, and over here I bought 200, and I bought them from Star again, and this time I paid $400 minus 400, right? So now it knows that the bowls, which I bought twice, I bought 1,200 here, I bought 1,200 over here, and then I've also bought 200 here. Whoops. Let's see. And I've also bought 200 here. So it adds that, and I get 1,400. We'll add in a row here, and we'll call that row quantity, because we want to know how much I bought of each one. So we're just going to do insert. 1 second. Okay, and we're going to go here, and we're going to go right click and go insert, and it will just insert smack in the middle. I'm going to do quantity T, and we're going to double click here so it resizes it like I showed you before. And again, we're going to do the same SUMIF calculation. So we're going to do equals SUMIF. We're going to look at skew, has to match this skew. Whoops, has to match this skew. And then we're going to get the result. We're going to add up all the quantity, and we're going to do there, and that will do it. It will add up all the quantity. So now we have 1,400 quantity, and we spent 2,800. And then later on, we're going to see sold for. In this column, we're going to pull from the Amazon data that we pull from a report, and that's going to tell us how much we sold for. I'm going to say, let's just pretend we already pulled the data. And this is 3,200, and this is 2,000, and this is 1,200, and this is 500, and this is 300. So now, and I'm going to make this all dollar amounts, okay? Then profit is going to be equals sold for minus cost. Not very hard. And then we hit enter. And then it will automatically calculate what our profit is. So, and then if we want, we can go back to design here in the table tools. We can add a total row. And then on the bottom here, this is showing these because the column is not wide enough. We can make it wide enough, and then we know how much money we made. We can look at our total sales. We can look at our total cost. Okay? And then we'd be able to summarize this table in a pivot table if we want to show our average profit per item. We could show our average cost per item, our average sold amount per item. We can calculate ROI right now. Let's do that. That should be really easy. We'll just put in something here and we'll do ROI. And the return on investment is our, hold on one second. Oh, I'm sorry. This shouldn't be minus. I made a mistake. This should be sold for plus cost. Whoa, that's why it looks messed up. Sold for plus cost. That's it. No, this should be sold for 2,000. Okay. So that will accurately add up the numbers. There we go. Those are correct because we added a minus. This is a negative number and a positive number, so we made a profit here. Now, what's ROI? ROI is simple. Return on investment is equals cost, let's see, equals, yeah, it's really cost, it's sold for over cost, I believe. We can do that. We can, no, that won't do it. Hold on one second, let me just fix this up. Our ROI will be oh, I see. Okay. It will be our cost, which is unfortunately a negative number. So I'm going to have to do times minus 1. I'm going to put that in parentheses here, in its own parentheses. Okay. So cost times minus 1 divided by my profit. And that will tell me my ROI. Now it thinks it's a dollar amount. It's not. We have to turn it into a percent. And we turn it into percent. So over here, our ROI is, that doesn't make sense, cost times minus 1 divided by profit. No, it's the other way around. That's what it is. It's profit divided by cost minus 1. I'm sorry, my math is escaping me. So we're going to X this out. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to do equals profit over cost times minus 1. That will just turn a negative number into a positive number. And there we go. Over here, as you can see, we bought it for 2,800. We made a profit of 400. ROI is 14%. This is 100% ROI. This is 140%. This is 200% ROI because we bought it for 100 and sold it for 300. So you can easily calculate ROI now. We can sort it large to small and say, hey, I should buy more towels. The bowls aren't doing so well. So that's just a quick starter on how to use SUMIF to pull data from other tables and create an analysis table that will we can add this and we can merge and center this. And that's a really quick way to calculate your data. Just make sure you put everything in tables, and then you could start using calculations to do things like this. We'll talk about a little later how you can create lookup tables. So for example, if I put the skew in here, in this table, I might want to be able to know what the ASIN and the description are without having to type them in. So then we would go over here, we would insert, and we would insert description. And in essence, what we have to do is we have to say, for this skew name in this table, I want you to pull the description from this table automatically. Okay? So we can do that by using something called index match. In index, what we first say is where am I going to pull my data from? So description equals index parentheses. We're going to pull our data from description here. Okay. Now, how do we know which one to do? So that we go match and parentheses, and we're saying that we have to match the SKU from our column, which is this, match SKU to SKU over here, and then we're going to do, then you have to put a 0 in there, and then we're going to do close this parentheses and close that parentheses, and that should work. Yep. Okay, so basically what we said is, what I want you to do is I want you to pull from purchases description, which is from this column. What I want you to do is I want you to pull a value from this column. And how do you know which value to pull from this column? Well, I need you to match up the SKU from here, which is this. I want you to match that up to the SKU from here. And so it looks at this and it says, okay, you want to pull something from in this column, you want to pull something from description. If we match towel and towel, whatever you have by towel here, and it says towel 1 in description, we're going to pull that down. So this is really just a quick tutorial on how to get started with Excel. And once you know this, you're ready to figure out the rest on your own.